So we're getting near the end of this project, which is good because I'm running out of days before Mother's Day. So in the box here, I have the two little jewelry boxes that are going to sit inside the jewelry box. They've been glued up and planed since, and then I've also spritzed them with a couple coats of shellac. This is the mitered box here. It looks really nice, clean corners, everything. This is a very easy one to have made, so all the profiles match beautifully and everything's nice. The other one here with the dovetails, now the bottom of the box looks pretty bad because there was on the panel there was one bad spot, and I went ahead and put it here face up, since if you remember these are going to have batting and then a fabric over top, so you'll never see the bottom anyway, so this is perfectly fine. This one here I needed a little bit more cleaning just because of trying to plane off the pins and make that all look clean, and to be perfectly honest, whenever I've done any dovetails in pine, they just never look that clean to me, so I'm not that thrilled with them, but hopefully we'll make the rest of the box look good enough that when it's sitting in here, you don't really care. Now, if you remember, this box here, of course, is reinforced mechanically by the dovetails, whereas this box here is just butt end glued to make the miters, so it's not very strong. Now, something that I learned from Frank Klaus was when he makes these little tiny boxes, sometimes he likes to reinforce them in a French style. Now, I don't remember, or even, I'm not sure if I ever knew, the name of this style, which what it is you simply take a saw and cut a thin curve at an angle through the miter. So what we would do is, in a sense, we'll cut one curve this direction and then a second curve kind of coming up. And then what you do is you just take a very thick plane shaving and jam it in there with glue, and then after it's solid, flush it on both sides, you get a nice decorative look, and at the same time you're strengthening this smaller miter. Now in my case, since this box is in a mahogany, and I happen to have a spare stick of sapele, which is also a form of mahogany, that's what I'm going to use for the contrasting wood of these kind of spline reinforcements. So let's go ahead and start. Now if you notice when I did the top ones, I went further. I went to the point where it would just want to pop out the inside, but I didn't break through. The bottom one, when I flipped it over, I tried to make it just about the same angle, but not go quite as far, just so that there's a little bit of a decorative difference between all the corners. So those are our curves. Now we'll go cut some material to fill them with. So all we're going to do is take a nice thick slice of veneer off the end of this with the plane. Want to get it nice and thick all in one shot. So I got two nice slices off of there. They're really tightly curled. They look like they're plenty thick enough for doing it. So what I want to do is I'm going to try unrolling these, but I can already tell they're going to want to snap as I unroll them. So what I'm going to do is I have a bottle of veneer softener, which if you've never dealt with veneer softener, it's basically glycerin in water. So you're going to spritz this with some glycerin and water. It gets in there, it softens up the fibers a bit, and you can unroll it. Then as I get it unrolled, I can leave something on it so that as it dries, it'll dry flat. And then I'll be able to insert it a lot more easily with some glue and just make the decorative edges. Now at this point, I can go ahead and continue to do some work on the boxes anyway while this dries, because I can easily add this on later and do some trimming on the outside before I go and hit it with the final coats of shellac and hopefully deliver this. So with the curve cuts done in the mitered box that are going to get filled later with the sapele slices, and I also have over here a pair of 2x4s squeezing the sapele slices that have been spritzed with a little bit of veneer softener, and they were softening up immediately, so this is mostly just to let it dry, and then they'll be good enough to push into these slots. Now at this point we can move on to, there's two other things I'd like to do to this box before giving it away, and that is I need to put some fabric in the lid, in the bottom of these two boxes with some batting, and then some batting and fabric in the bottom of the box. So that's for the lining. So after work today, I went by the fabric store, and talk about fish out of water, me in a fabric store. But I went and I got some batting. Always helps to find the cute one and ask for help. So this is some nice thin batting that I'm going to be using for lining the lid and then the base. I might add a couple extra layers if I need something to be fluffier, but this is going to work well, especially in the bottom of these boxes where I don't really want a big pillow. I just want something soft. So this is for the batting for lining it. And what I picked for the color is a blue velvet. Now this velvet's got a really nice sheen to it and shine, so that's going to look really great in the bottom of this box. If we can maybe we can make a little pile here to sort of demo what it might look like. So look, you know, a little like that. Except hopefully a little neater if I can get a good glue job done on it. So I think it's going to look really good like that. In picturing what that's going to look like on the bottom of these boxes, I'm thinking, well, that looks good, and I made this nice little profiled cove, but we could add to that. And there's nothing that goes better with blue velvet than silver. So what I was thinking of doing is I have a gilding kit here. I had picked up David Mark's gilding kit a long time ago as a way of trying it out. Now there are a number of chemicals in here for doing the different patinations, and there's also some glue size for doing gilding with different leaf. And they have a little bit of actually some silver leaf in this kit, so that's going to work out actually pretty well. Now you don't have to get the David Mark's kit. I mean, it's a good kit. There's a couple projects in it, and basically you get the chemicals to do just those projects. So you'll walk away with experience, and then you'll be able to go with that experience to pick out which chemicals you want to buy in the future. A different option is that I got this one here at Woodcraft. They may not be selling it anymore because it was on a clearance, which is why I grabbed it. These were at an exceptional price. So I picked up this kit here. It comes with some gold leaf in it, as well as some tamping brushes and some brushes for applying the glue size to a gilded surface, as well as some water-based glue size itself. So this is pretty good just because this kit with the leaf and the gloves and the tamp and the brushes and all that was actually cheaper than buying just a small container of glue size. And you get a full one inside there. So you can look at this at places like Woodcraft or perhaps Rockwood. And I did actually get some copper leaf out of that deal, which was actually my original plan, was to hit this with some copper leafing on the side, because I thought I was going to go with more of a color that might be reddish, so I could hit it with copper, and then over time the patination would turn it more towards some reds and stuff, and it might look good. But after picking out that blue velvet and you know, having the cute person helping me tell me that it would look better with silver, well, I was convinced. So let's get to cutting some of the foam, and then we'll get to the silver leafing. Now, I'm going to apply some size to the bottom. The reason why is I don't want to have to, normally the way you know when it's ready is you rub your knuckle across it to see if it's tacky or if it's coming off with your knuckle. Obviously, I don't want to do that to this cove. So, since this bottom is going to be covered anyway, I'm going to go ahead and apply a little bit of size here. I can use that to determine when the rest of the size should be ready. And since this is the last part, when this one's ready, certainly the other parts are going to be ready. Now we flip it upside down, let the sizing set. It takes about 30 minutes before it could be ready, and it could take up to an hour, depends on your humidity and dryness. Now, considering how dry Arizona is, I'm expecting these to be ready in about 20 seconds. Now, the size that I have here on the bottom, you'll feel it, and it's tacky, but what you want to be able to do is kind of, you should be able to hear that too. Now, David Marks has an excellent way of describing that. He describes it as if you're rubbing your knuckle on the sticky side of blue tape, and that's exactly what I'm feeling there. So I'm not going to touch the cove because I'll know it should be at the same level as that. So this way here, I avoid contaminating the cove or possibly removing some of the size from different places by testing it down here, and then I'm effectively, this is going to be covered up by the fabric anyway. Now, what I'm using here is an acid brush. I normally use these for glue. And this is one that I normally always cut mine as well. I cut the bristle short, otherwise they're just way too long. For this, I need a tamping brush. So this is a brush I've already used, so it's a little bit stiffer, which is gonna be good because what we're gonna do is I'll be putting the leaf onto the cove and then poking down on it to just sort of tamp it down into the cove and make it stick. Now, once it sticks, we don't worry about the skewing. The skewing is basically the parts that are hanging off the edge that you would normally cut off and trim. We're going to leave that there until tomorrow. Once the glue is really set, then we can kind of brush it off using a stiff brush like this as well. So I cleaned the edges of the box with then I put the little pieces of sapele into the edges. Just adds a small decorative touch. There's nothing terribly special about it. And it will add some strength. Not a ton of strength, but hopefully you wouldn't need this to be that strong. So now I'm just going to put the padding in. We'll see how this looks. So I got the velvet lining in the small boxes, and I'm thinking that overall everything is looking pretty good there. I mean, the silver and the blue just go great together. And these are just friction fitted in, and just as a note, you don't need that much friction. I left, they were a lot snugger than they needed to be. So the velvet really adds a lot to the outside dimensions, so you can make it a lot. I was assuming it was going to be a lot thinner, so I did a little trimming before I popped them back in there after I saw how tight they were. But otherwise, looking really good. So it turns out that for me, Mother's Day, I have to go and deliver this tomorrow, Friday, instead of on Sunday. Because my cousin is in town from Canada. We're going to be doing a little dinner, and I was going to go fill this with some truffles tomorrow and hide it in the house somewhere where she'll run into it. But of course, it's got a lock, so she gets the key on Mother's Day.